Okay, thank you. It's 5:31. We are going to start the work session and then go into our regular meeting. We are doing things a little bit differently tonight as far as we are going to follow the regular agenda items where we're going to do our call to order and roll call, pledge of allegiance, and then we're going to, on item number 5, we're going to go into a work session. And when we complete that, and then we will go into our regular meeting. What's
into a work session
we're gonna go into a work session.
for public comment.
No, the meeting is gonna start after the work session. But
I think on the agenda, it was made that way so that public comment would immediately follow that work session.
because
And it would just be a general, and it would be applicable there.
yeah,
Yeah.
since it's not technically a public comment session, but we want to take public comment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so call to order. The land that we know as Sequim was once inhabited solely by the first peoples known as the Sklallam people, represented by the 3 tribal governments, Lower Elwha Sklallam, Jamestown Sklallam, and Port Gamble Sklallam. We serve as stewards of the land within the city of Sequim with the same care and acknowledgement, the same care and consideration the Sklallam tribes has and continues to provide. This acknowledgement is a respect to the Sklallam people and their history. The Planning Commission serves as an advisory body to the City Council. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to provide guidance and direction for Sequim's future growth through continued review and improvement to Sequim's comprehensive plan, zoning code, shoreline management, environmental protection, and related land use documents. The Planning Commission will have all of the powers and perform each and all of the duties specified by Chapter 35A.63 RCW as amended and set forth or amended by ordinance. Roll call. Let's go ahead and take roll call. Please note that Commissioner LaFavor is absent today on an excused absence.
All righty. Commissioner Carter.
Present.
Commissioner Kuntz.
Present.
Commissioner Cummings.
Here.
Commissioner Fain.
Present.
Commissioner Hewitt.
Present.
Commissioner Commissioner Mihalik.
Present.
All right. Everyone's accounted for.
Okay, thank you. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes for the regular session on February 6, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes, and is there any corrections? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of February 6th, 2024.
Thank you. A second?
A second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes stand approved. Okay, now we are going to start our work session on the moratorium on applications and permits for redevelopment of mobile home and manufactured home parks. And Sharice, I believe that we have Kim here to do a presentation on this for us.
Yes, so thanks. Tonight, Sharice Deshanes, Deputy City Manager, Community and Economic Development Director for the record. Yes, tonight we have Kim Mahoney with LDC. She is a principal planner there. We are going to roll through this work session. Kim will do a PowerPoint presentation and we'll be asking for some feedback from you all tonight based on prior discussions that we've had over the last several meetings. And I'm going to turn it over to Kim and we'll be just communicating back and forth. And there's an opportunity during work sessions to have conversations in a way that we normally wouldn't on a regular item. So we want that communication to happen back and forth. That's what we hope to gain tonight, and then some more direction from what we hear from you. So I'm going to turn it over to Kim now, and yeah, let's do this, Kim.
Thanks. Thanks, Sharice. Good evening, Commission. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm just going to share my screen. I've prepared a presentation, and as Sharice has indicated, much of the material that we're going to go over tonight is some material that will be familiar to the Commission based on our pretty consistent presentations of this material. But we've developed some additional thought and some methods for how it is that we can go about addressing the moratorium on applications for mobile home and manufactured home parks in Sequim. And so we're here to be able to discuss that with you tonight. Please feel very welcome as I'm working or as I'm walking through the presentation to interrupt me with questions or ideas. It'd be really beneficial. You can hold them till the end, but very, very welcome to be able to just interrupt me with your thoughts, and so we can work through them during this work session. I'll go ahead and dive right in. This is the slide that this commission is very familiar with to give some Washington State and City of Sequim local background as to how it is that we have gotten to the point that we are today. The only addition to this slide is based off of this last bullet on the right-hand side, which is that we presented before the city's council on February 12th. We provided them with an update on the work that we've done since the moratorium was initially adopted in Sequim, and we requested a 6-month extension on the moratorium ordinance, and that was granted and approved unanimously by City Council on February 12th. So there's a new ordinance that allows our moratorium to be extended through August 12th of 2024, and that gives us the time that we need to continue addressing and exploring the variety of options that there are for addressing the moratorium and how we can go about implementing that in the city of Sequim. Since we last saw this commission, we learned and took from our last meeting that it was agreed that further exploring option 3, the tenant to opportunity to purchase ordinance, was no longer a viable option for implementation at the local level in Sequim, and so we've removed that from further coordination. We also understood from this commission that our priority options to further look into are options 1 and 2, but that we still wanted to explore option 5 a bit more. We've done that in the time since we last met this commission and have a few more ideas to discuss tonight. What you see in front of you are terms and definitions that are oftentimes related to MHPs or mobile home and manufactured home parks. What we've brought in the past of this commission has been a much more lengthy kind of matrix that includes many terms that are oftentimes used interchangeably in the discussion of mobile home parks. And we have distilled down that list quite a bit. We've referenced a wealth of sources for similar definitions and terms that are used throughout the region at the state level. So we've compiled a list of terms and their definitions, both from the Sequim Municipal Code, the RCW, and then also from the municipal codes of neighboring jurisdictions, Port Angeles, Port Townsend, and Paulsbo, to be able to explore some consistent manners in which these terms are addressed and defined in those codes, and what's appropriate for the discussion as it relates to the preservation of mobile home parks and manufactured home parks. And so what we have in front of you tonight is a couple of slides that propose our definitions for how to go about addressing terms that we have determined are relevant to the discussion of preservation of mobile home parks and manufactured home parks. And then an additional slide after this one that goes into a description of terms that are inappropriate to be discussed as it relates to the overlay, the mobile home park overlay that we are exploring via option 2. So the terms that we find relevant here are manufactured home, mobile home, and then manufactured home park or mobile home park. We've prepared these or are proposing these definitions for these terms, again, based on a kind of a consolidated review of largely similar ways in which these terms are defined. even looking specifically at the Washington Department of Labor and Industries and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the distinction between a manufactured home and a mobile home park really comes down to the date in which it was constructed, where a manufactured home is a dwelling that's constructed after June 15th of 1976, and a mobile home was one that was constructed beforehand. And so we've gone about kind of compiling these definitions that, like I said, are largely consistent among neighboring jurisdictions, the RCW and Sequim's present code. It's worth noting that the definitions that you see here are based off of relatively recent code changes in neighboring jurisdictions. The RCW makes very, very routine edits to the state law. But these definitions are also largely based off of neighboring jurisdictions that have taken revisions to their own municipal code as recently as 2023 to be able to revise definitions and codes as it relates to the preservation of mobile home parks. So these are not only relevant in terms of state law and contextually in the regional area, but they're also very recent and have been observed and kind of worked over by a number of other well-qualified staff and commissions and councils in the area. I'll move on to the next slide right now to be able to also show you some other terms that we've brought before this commission that we have determined are no longer by our measure, no longer appropriate for discussion or inclusion in the conversation of the mobile home park overlay. And that's motorhome, recreational vehicle or RV, modular home, and tiny home. These are terms that oftentimes get used interchangeably, or at least get used in the conversation of mobile home parks. But the moratorium in Sequim is very specific and focused on the preservation of mobile home and manufactured home parks. And so to expand upon that and attempt to include things like RVs and motorhomes, modular homes, or tiny homes as a part of that discussion seems irrelevant and just a bit of a stretch over what our charge is in front of us today, which is to explore that preservation of mobile home and manufactured home parks. So we have prepared definitions here that can be included in the chapter 1808 of Sequim's Municipal Code, which is the definition section, just to be able to provide defined terminology around what the term means, but recognizing that these terms aren't something that will be part of what's considered as appropriate for the overlay.
And Kim, I would just add, I mean, these are great definitions and it's good research that we've been looking at, and we might be able to use this in the future as we are defining some of these items that aren't very well covered in our code today.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Sharice. That's a fair point. I'll just move right along and start digging into the three options that we're still pursuing in Sequim, which is options 1, 2, and 5. This slide that you see in front of you right now discusses a revised goal 6.2 and a new goal 6.5. And these are exactly as they've been written every other time that we've come before this commission. This should look very familiar to this commission so far. We haven't made any adjustments here. And we still support that these are, well-crafted goals and policies that will carry out the effort of preserving mobile home parks in Sequim. We have made adjustments here to the policies that were previously shown to this commission. And so what you see in front of you right now is a slide that shows where language has been removed or moved and added. This looks like a tremendous amount of cutting and editing, but I just want to point out that where you see the underlying language begin in new policy 6.2.5, use local resources, that whole sentence right there is it just was previously new policy 6.2.6, and we just brought it up into 6.2.5 because they're relevant enough to each other that it seems appropriate to include them within the same policy. And we did the same thing with the first sentence of new policy 6.2.7. That first sentence just got brought up to be the tail end of new policy 6.2.5. So really we took that content and condensed it into one proposed new policy because the content is so relevant amongst each other. What we did discuss and determine at the staff level to be appropriate deletions from what we'd previously recommended was the statement, I'll read it as follows: support the sale of mobile home parks to their community tenants and otherwise support adequate notice to mobile home park tenants when a mobile home park will close or will convert to another use. This probably sounds very familiar. It sounds very similar to what we previously considered to be option 3, which was that tenant opportunity to purchase ordinance. This was language that we had previously proposed to be a part of the comprehensive plan amendment because it would carry out that effort that would have been brought into SQUIM via option 3 if we explored that, but acknowledging that is now governed at the state level and has been determined by the state to be illegal for any local ordinance to attempt to adopt, we now recommend that we don't move forward with that statement. The only other statement that we have listed here is the tail end of new policy 6.2.7, support nonprofit housing organizations during all stages of siting and project planning and when applying for county, state, and federal funding. We again now think that this is something that isn't relevant to the discussion. Supporting nonprofit housing organizations during all stages of siting seems inappropriate to include in a mobile home park preservation overlay, since we wouldn't be, the matter in front of us right now is not siting of new parks, but it's the preservation of those existing parks. And furthermore, anything that has to do with nonprofit housing organizations or working with some third-party organizations is really something that we're exploring more, captured under option 5. Which we do understand to be the least of the 3 remaining options, the lesser priority one, but we have some ideas around how we can still go about incorporating that into SQUIM that I'll get into later on this evening.
Kim, can I ask you a quick question? This is Jeff Carter.
Yes, of course.
It's just a language detail because I'm working through it in another place right now, but on new goal 6.5, I know it's a goal, but and it says should preserve or should be preserved. What's your take on should, shall, and will? Is that
never use shall or will in a comprehensive plan. I will always advise that to every commission or council I sit in front of. That
okay.
It is not the comprehensive plan's role to act as the teeth of a community's the local communities governing literature. That is the role of the municipal code. The comprehensive plan should act as a guide or a sort of framework for what the intention is, the design, the vision of the community, but it should not act as though it's the teeth.
Okay, that was my follow-up. Does it come in policy or ordinance? So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I've explained this slide right here just shows a clean version of everything that I just described to this commission. And it also includes the new policy 6.5.1, which this commission has been very familiar with and has actually pointed us toward. This policy came, as well as goal 6.5 came directly out of Bellingham's municipal code because they recently overhauled their municipal code to be able to incorporate preservation of manufactured home parks and mobile home parks. So that policy reads the same, and then new policy 6.2.5 is just a clean version of what you previously saw on the last slide. In our last visit before this commission, we also presented a number of options as it related specifically to option 2. We could have looked at a mobile home park zone, or we could have looked at a mobile home park overlay, or we could have looked at neither and just worked within the confines of the existing 1862 mobile home and manufactured home parks, and then kind of interspersed a bunch of other zoning regulations throughout the rest of the municipal code. And we took from our last meeting before this commission that the preferred option to continue exploring was the mobile home park overlay. And so we've done so. And we worked up some early preliminary sort of language, just like some framework so far that was included in your packets this evening. And I can pull that up right now. We've worked up some preliminary language that shows what a new ordinance could look like. It's still very much in the development stages. We've just taken an early shot at being able to form some of what that new ordinance could look like. In general, what we have worked up so far is that to adopt the mobile home park overlay, we would repeal SMC Chapter 18.62, which is the city's existing ordinance on mobile home and manufactured home parks. And we would adopt SMC 18.63, and that would be a new chapter specifically governing the overlay. We have the opportunity to be able to review 18.62 as it exists today and carry over any relevant portions that we think are still appropriate to live in 1863 as we move forward. That analysis is something that staff is still working on to be able to determine whether anything is appropriate to be carried over. We have also recognized the value in housing all definitions relative to mobile home parks in one chapter, and that's SMC 18.08 definitions. That's SQUIM's existing chapter defining all terms as it relates to the SQUIM Municipal Code. Presently, SQUIM's municipal code includes definitions in a few different chapters, and it can cause some confusion. We don't want to continue to add to that. And so we would just include any new defined terms that we went over at the beginning of this presentation in 1808. And we'd also ensure that there's a purpose statement included in the new chapter 1863 that pointedly mentions the preservation of mobile home parks in SQUIM, that the purpose of the chapter is to be able to support that. We still have a lot of work that we're doing on this. We understand and recognize the kind of inherent ancillary code updates that will be driven by this work. There's many other relevant discussion points in a number of other chapters within the SQUIM Municipal Code governing things like parking design, development standards, landscaping, use provisions, definitions. And all of those will be something that we need to look deeper into and come back to this commission with recommendations on which chapters we'll need to revise to be able to ensure that there is alignment and conformity between the new chapter that we'll be creating and any of those ancillary ones. So that way we understand that there is structure and governance that's associated with how much parking is necessary, in terms of the preserved mobile home parks and landscaping and design and things of that nature. So we're still working on that. We're also still working on determining where the mobile home overlay should apply, whether that's something that should be allowed maybe in all residential use areas, or maybe it should apply just to those existing mobile home parks in SQUIM today. And so we're still working on determining what is appropriate for that. And then we will create a map using GIS technology to be able to show where that overlay area applies. And then we are also, as a measure of due diligence, taking it upon ourselves to be able to review previous projects that authorized the siting of mobile home parks, to be able to kind of guide our understanding and develop some of our ideas towards what an appropriate approach is towards design and dimensional standards. If there's been something that has obviously not worked in its application to SQUIM municipal or SQUIM mobile home parks in the recent past, then that's something that would be good for staff to consider as we move forward with defining new dimensional and design standards as it relates to their preservation. I have just a couple more slides, and then I might also just switch screens to be able to pull up the overlay language that we've worked up so far and some edits that we made to the comprehensive plan. This is option number 5. It's the option wherein we would engage with a third party or explore the option of how to be able to interact with third party organizations as it relates to mobile home park preservation. And we've thought about housing authorities and nonprofit preservation organizations and resident-owned communities. Sharice is still actively engaging with the Peninsula Housing Authority to be able to explore what sort of resource or partnership that could exist between SQUIM and the Peninsula Housing Authority. But I also had a conversation last week. We were reached out to Rock Northwest, that's resident-owned communities. Rock Northwest reached out to us. They've been following these progressive sort of moves in Sequim as it relates to mobile home park preservation over the last few months. And they reached out to Sharice and I to be able to have a conversation. I did speak with a representative from Rock Northwest last week, and I gathered some good information from her. She was extremely well versed and knowledgeable about all things related to the transactions in a sale of a mobile home park. She personally assisted in the authoring of the legislature that set forth a tenant opportunity to purchase ordinance that's now codified in RCW and is driven by the state. And so she just is a tremendous source of information that's very relevant to this discussion. And she, committed to being extremely available to the tenants and landlords within Sequim today. Is happy to be able to work through any sort of questions or provide any guidance. And also provided me with some examples of different resources that Sequim could choose to be able to provide to the community. To be able to kind of answer some questions or provide some early guidance, at least point the Sequim community towards the appropriate resource that could, teach them more about these opportunities as it relates to buying and selling of mobile home parks and what that could look like. In terms of how Sequim could be involved in all of that, there are a couple of options that we've thought about. We've thought, maybe we could print out a couple of those sorts of pamphlets and just keep them at the front desk in the Sequim City Hall and Sequim's office to be able to have available to anybody in the community that's interested in learning about that. Sequim could also create a web page on the city's website with some external links to external organization information. That could also potentially include links to the Washington legislature page to be able to, to allow the public to more easily monitor things like Senate bills and House bills as it relates to mobile home parks. The challenge with this is that it really, it charges a member of the Sequim staff with kind of carrying out the role as the expert, or at least staying apprised of all of this information. And it may be more interesting to this commission to consider how well qualified some of these third-party organizations are to be able to maintain the position as that subject matter expert. Links also break routinely, and so it's something worth considering whether a member of the Sequim staff should be responsible for kind of staying on top of that and making those edits to the web page to be able to ensure that the most relevant and recent information is able to be accessed by the community. Only a couple slides left here, and this is just a couple of examples of some of the information that was provided to me from Rock Northwest during our conversation. They pointed me towards their website, and they have this link on their website that just kind of bounces you over to a resource page from the Department of Commerce. And then the Department of Commerce has just a tremendous wealth of information available to be able to help answer some, I would assume, frequently asked questions within the mobile home park tenant and ownership community, to be able to explore things like transaction sales, what sorts of options there are to be able to start a co-op, to be able to act as a potential buyer for a mobile home park that's gone up for sale by its owner. And so it's just a tremendous body of resources available between Rock Northwest and the Washington Department of Commerce that, again, could be linked on the Sequim's website and monitored by a member of their staff, or could be printed out and provided in hard copy. Some options to be able to explore there further with this commission. Our next steps are just to be able to explore the recommendations that have been made by staff this evening, to try and gauge the commission's perspectives on those recommendations and see whether there's any further developed thought that we should be carrying forward into our next presentation and the next body of research that we do to be able to further implement options 2 and 5. and then bring those draft materials back to this commission for additional collaboration, additional work sessions, public engagement, and then move through the more administrative procedural steps after we have each of those options refined, moving through SEPA and intent to adopt with Commerce, and then going back to council after a final hearing to be able to adopt these changes. If there's interest, it was in your packets. Some materials that were in your packets was a revised version of the comprehensive plan chapter 6, the housing chapter, to be able to include the revised policies and goals and the new policies and goals. That's been prepared for you in red text. You'll note that the policies and goals are there, but the actual discussion components following those policies are still something that are being workshopped by the staff. And then the another attachment in your agenda packet today is that workshop early version of Sequim Municipal Code Chapter 18.63, what that purpose statement looks like, and some of the components that we think are going to likely be subsections of that chapter, but are still being refined by staff. I can share those now on my screen if it's helpful, or again, those are both attachments in your packet this evening. And I'll just stop sharing and ask the commission if they have any questions or ideas to discuss.
Kim, can I add before we go to the commission, just that once we are diving deep into the municipal code changes, we might need to slow down just a tad because we'll be working closely with our city attorney on the language before we bring it back to you. So we might need a little time in between after getting your feedback and making sure that we draft what we need to, and then make sure that they're really comfortable with that language. That will be part of our next step.
Thanks, Reese.
Okay, thank you very much, Kim. That was a great presentation. Does anybody on the commission have any questions or discussion at this time? Alex.
Yes, this is Commissioner Fain. The definition of mobile home and manufactured home as used to focus this on the main areas in the city of Sequim leaves out RV parks that exist. Thinking is, but off the top of my head, there's Gilgal, there's West End, there's John Wayne Marina, and in total they may have about 150 households that are semi-permanent in the neighborhood that aren't often acknowledged. I was part of them for a long time, so I know it provides the service, well, for snowbirds who are here half the year, but also for those. It provides benefits of community living and shared resources, laundry, kitchens, showers, and security, hookups, of course, to sewer and electricity, and are great during times of family transitions, such as divorces or death of someone, when you're between houses, or for our many new Sequim residents who are climate refugees from other states, of which immediately we think of those who were burnt out in California and came here. It's a place to land, and as we know, it takes a long time to find a suitable house you can afford to live in here. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that we're excluding these valuable resources that, and we're pretending maybe they don't exist, but they provide a lot of support to a lot of people. And if there's anyone present tonight that knows someone in an RV park, or you're living in an RV park yourself, please step up and comment. On a slightly different subject, I understand the comprehensive plan is going to be virtually completely rewritten by is in the stage of that. And it has a lot of at second reading of this chapter, a lot of outdated desires and wishes and things that we've seen in the last 10 years have not come to fruition because the market wasn't driven to create affordable housing or diversity housing or develop options for low income as it was. And so I see these slight additions to the chapter 6 on housing, but I would hope we would see a total rewriting of the chapter on housing and a good discussion of what fell short, what didn't work, and how better to redefine what may be market feasible or that we can help see come to pass in alternative ways. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Alex.
Thanks.
Jerry, did I address some of his questions?
Yeah, I was hoping, do you mind if I start with the comprehensive plan and then I can move back into the RV comments? And Kim, I'm hoping you can help a little bit with those as I address it. Starting with the comprehensive plan, Alex, thank you for your comments. We really appreciate the thought that you have and what you're going, you're going into. So tonight you're looking at the existing comprehensive plan, and that's what Kim and I are working on when we're talking about the manufactured home parks. A little later tonight, we're going to get a presentation from SCJ Alliance, and we're going to be talking about the 2025 comprehensive plan amendments or the periodic review and update. And that will be an opportunity and is an opportunity. We are looking at housing. We're assessing, doing housing assessment and housing needs assessment and diving into the work of housing as it is today. But Kim and I needed to open up the comprehensive plan in order to make changes to the existing policy of the municipal code in order to meet what council's directive is for this moratorium. So that's why it's a little bit confusing, is because you have two separate things going on at the same time that are related to some degree. So hopefully we'll clarify a little bit more as we get in later on in the night. You can hear from our other consultant as we talk about the comprehensive plan. And then moving into RVs and community living, and as we do value that in our community, and we did a lot of diving into what manufactured and mobile home parks are, and what we were requested to do as part of the moratorium, and what they aren't. And it doesn't mean that RVs or community living aren't important in our community, because we have a wide range of value from all housing types that are provided. But we do have to draw the line somewhere when we start to assess the policy changes. And I think that that's where we're kind of showing that here we'll be talking about manufactured and mobile home parks. And like I said, and followed Kim in her presentation a little bit, it doesn't mean that there isn't a need for better definitions and to address the concerns of the commission and the council when we start talking about those other forms of housing that we have in our community or don't have that we may need in the future.
Okay, thank you very much, Charisse.
Thanks.
Does that clarify for you, Alex?
Yes, as the new comprehensive plan unfolds, I hope there'll be opportunities to address this.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
All right, and anybody else? Karen?
On the revised goal 6.2, the first sentence says appropriate housing options, and appropriate leaves it pretty wide open. Affordable, safe, those things I think we've all agreed on. Appropriate, we might want to reconsider that word in there.
That's a good idea, Commissioner. Is there an alternative word, or would it be acceptable just to explore something like language that reads allow for affordable and safe housing options?
That would, I think that would make the point more so. Appropriate leaves it open to big, small, in between color. It's
Understood.
just such a wide open term.
Yes, that's a great comment. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm taking that down.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else? No? Yes, Jeff.
This is Jeff Carter here. Thanks for your work on this, Kim, by the way. So just a comment on the purpose statement in 1863. I'm sure it's a work in progress. So the last line in it, while allowing a variety of other uses, can you just tell me what that means?
Sure. This is, thank you for bringing this up. And I hope that the version that came into your packets included a version of the Word document with the comments that were left in the margins.
Yes.
If it did, then you'll see that that language and specifically was highlighted and commented on. There's a comment by me that says subject to change based on review of appropriate uses for the overlay. Really, that is language that has been observed and studied from other municipal codes that have recently undergone these changes. It might not be something that's appropriate to live forward into Sequim's municipal code. And so that's why that comment is there, to be able to remind Sharice and I, as we continue to move through this process, that it's something that we need to consider is whether or not this is whether or not other uses are appropriate for the overlay. This is very much, as you pointed out, an early version of what this chapter is going to look like. And it is still going to be scrutinized heavily and workshopped a lot between Sharice and I, and that language may or may not continue into the next version that we take to this commission.
And then one follow-up question on definitions. Is there how do you come to definitions? Is there a source reference you use, or is this just experience, trial and error kind of thing for definitions?
It's a review of other terms as they're defined in both the state law and then Sequim's own municipal code and 3 neighboring municipalities within the region. So we kind of explored how these terms are defined in each of those codes, and then did a bit of a comparison to be able to see what is consistent and also still relevant and accurate. The benefit that we have in Sequim is that these terms were very recently, as recently as 2023, reconsidered and workshopped and adopted into other local municipal codes within the region and the RCW. And so it provides us with a tremendous degree of confidence and comfort around the validity of the definitions.
Thank you, Kim.
Of course.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Eileen, I know you're online. Did you have anything?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I've been trying to figure out how to make this work ever since I got on. I brought up one time about the concerns that you haven't heard anything from the landowners from these mobile home parks. And, I think it's kind of important we hear from them or incorporate what they know and, what their plans are or in this whole process. So have you heard anything from any park owners at all since this started?
We did bring that up last meeting, and we kind of felt that, that it would be that we weren't going to go out of our way to do anything special for them compared to anybody else in any other situation. That it would be up to them to contribute if they wanted to. Sharice, did you have anything on that?
I was just going to add that since that time, we haven't heard from anyone, we haven't had any more public comment about it. So Emily, the only other person I would rely on to know if we've received anything would be you. And I know you would be sending that on to me. So anything you've heard in the last few days?
No.
Yeah. I guess I'm just feeling like we're trying to solve a problem and we don't have all the players at the table to help solve it. So I don't know. I don't know what we could do and it might prevent issues later if we're reaching out a little bit with pretty important players in this whole decision. So just my thoughts.
And if you wanted us to, turn that corner and start reaching out, this is probably the time as we're getting into the portion where we're starting to talk policy language in more detail. So you've given kind of a high level direction for the, updating and overlay zone, and
Mhm.
we'll be working on that language, that technical language. We have been trying to collect the owner's information. And so if that's something you wish for us to dive into in a little bit deeper, we could try to send out letters or reach those folks, letting them know in a different way. There will be, the public notices, et cetera, when we get to
Right.
the hearings.
But there might be owners that are out of town or corporations or people that really aren't or just saying, just wait, we're going to come after you kind of thing. So I guess if possible, if you're developing a mailing list, I think it would be worthwhile to send out a notice to them, just giving an update what we're working on. We would appreciate your input to help us make the best decision to make this work. That's what I would like to suggest.
Thank you, Eileen.
Mhm.
I have a question on that. So what is our process normally, like, let's say that we're looking at doing an overlay for something else, or, I mean, hypothetically speaking. Do we provide any communication more or different than what we're doing right now with this?
So I would need to look into this in a lot more detail when we get to the point where we would talk about the final public hearings for overlay zones. But, impacted property, and, if you send them directly a message for that or not, I need to take a look at that a little bit more. But we will be, at the very least, putting this information and following the public hearing process that we have in our code, which is to notice when there's, municipal language that we'd be considering that would go out and be published. So one thing that we can research and give you a little bit more background on at the next meeting is, if we need to send out that public notice, at what point would we send it? And it doesn't need to go directly to the owners of those, of the mobile home parks as well. So we'll do that research and get back with you on that, because I'm not certain of the answer tonight.
Yeah. And the other thought is, when there is a public note hearing on a property in a neighborhood, don't you send out letters of notification to neighbors in the range of that property to let them know?
And there's a
Yeah.
judicial issue, we would send it to property owners within 300 feet. And so when it's a decision that is more legislative, we need to take a look at that too and see what the judge does.
Okay. Thanks for looking into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that from any of the other commissioners? No? Okay. I think what you guys are doing is really good. I really like how this is moving forward. I did have one question for you, Charisse. Were you able, I know that we had talked about like the Peninsula Housing Authority, and it was kind of our lowest priority. Have you had any discussion with them at all, or anything to that effect? Or are we focusing on the comprehensive plan update and the overlay?
So in the last couple of weeks, I haven't tried to reach out to them. We've been focusing hard on trying to bring you the language right now for the overlay and the comp plan. And so what that is on one of my goal lists, but I haven't reached out to them to talk directly about this particular issue.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have anything else before we go into public comment? Okay, and just for clarification, Charisse, we're going to hear public comment if there's anything else. I know that you're looking for a little bit of direction as far as, if we're happy with the direction that it's going, or if we want more or something different. I definitely think that Eileen had brought up that she'd like to know a little bit more about, getting everybody's point of view. But can we, after we take public comment, if we hear something that maybe we want to, be focused on or anything, can we still discuss after the public comment since we're in a work session? I believe we can, correct?
I think you can go back to that. It's safe. We're not
Okay.
looking for a recommendation tonight, right? We're just looking
Mhm.
for direction. And so I think it would be fine to do that. And fair enough. It might not follow the agenda exactly, but it will move us farther along if you were to wait to the next meeting to state that. So yeah, I think that would be just fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, if there's no other comments or discussions at this point by the commission, then we're going to move into our public comment portion of this work session. General public comment will be heard at this time. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. For those wishing to speak on the public hearing topics, please hold those comments until that portion of the meeting, which is kind of a mute point right now. We're just going to take public comment on anything that anybody would like to comment on. If you are planning on giving public comment tonight, please make sure that you sign the list that Emily has. Each person will have 3 minutes. And I also will check periodically with Emily if there's anybody online that would like to provide comment. But I think at this time, we will start with public comment from people that are in the room presently. And do you have names that you wanted to call out, or?
Come on up, Doug.
You're the only one on here.
There it is, Doug Wright, Hendrickson Community, Sequim. Awesome job, Kim. Thank you. Sharice, staff, commissioners. We're getting there. You guys were messing with my brain just a little bit. As looking through all of this stuff, I noticed that we switched to 1864 in the middle of 1863, but I figured it out. It's an obvious typo. What I would like to do is offer a suggestion, basically by adding 18.63.080, which will basically address Ms. Cummings, Commissioner Cummings' concern. And I think it's basically offered as a way to stimulate some conversation and some thinking, because I did run across in my research a city who had protection like this in place. They took it off, then they put it back on because they realized later, whoops, we just opened these people up to some pretty heavy duty bad stuff. So, and according to Commissioner Cummings, I think this might actually offer some kind of answer. Again, it's a suggestion to kick off comment, some thoughts that might actually benefit everybody. So take a look at it. I'm not hard to find. I'm open for discussion, questions, or whatever. And again, thank you everyone for all of your hard work. We're getting there. A lot of people are feeling pretty good about things these days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Emily, would you make sure that we get, I know that Eileen can't see what we've been given. Will you make sure that she's emailed this and it's entered?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. Is there anybody online that would like to provide public comment at this time?
There's no one online.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the room that would like to provide public comment? Okay. Are you sure? No one else? Okay. All right. Thank you. And just to confirm one more time, there is no one online, correct, before I close? Okay.
Correct.
So at this point, I'm going to close the public comment portion of this work session. Anybody on the commission have anything else they'd like to add at this point? No? Okay, I think, Sharice, I think that I feel anyway that if we can continue down the path that you are with the revisions to the comp plan and also the no, I'm drawing a blank right now. I've been up since 2:30 this morning. Just everything that you're doing with a little bit of research on the owners, whether or not we are obligated to contact. I think it looks great. Thank you very much for your hard work, and you too, Kim.
Thanks, Julian. We will continue our work then moving forward with the comp plan, looking into the owner contacts, talking with the Olympic Peninsula Housing Authority, and then diving into the overlay zones and what that will look like in that language. So thank you all tonight. If there's anything more that you want us to focus on, please let me know, and we will be back to you in the future with an update on the moratorium.
Okay, thank you. Just one more thing. I know Emily, so Doug gave us like a proposed chapter. And so Emily's going to make sure that Eileen has that, but maybe we can make sure that Kim has that as well.
Of course,
Okay.
yeah, I can.
Yeah, Emily won't let me down.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it. Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Commission.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
I just had one last thought here. It's kind of my pet peeve, so let me just say it, and you can bank it for another time. But there's a lot of work being done in the city of Port Angeles, Clallam County, and discussion here in Sequim about short-term rentals. Is this an issue in mobile home parks at all? And if it is, should we be dealing with that in some way?
To be honest with you, I haven't heard any comments about that particular issue in mobile home parks. We can put our ears to the ground between now and the next meeting and see if we can find out anything more.
There was a lot of head shaking going on, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, owner occupied in their park. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you clarify for us online? We didn't catch all.
The comment is that the parks are owner occupied, which does not allow for any kind of a rental. So which I'm familiar with that. My dad lives in a park that's not in the city, it's in the county and is owner occupied. And so I guess I just assumed that all of the parks that we're talking about within the city limits are owner occupied, but I would be curious, to Jeff's point, if there was, one that wasn't, although I don't think that there is.
Well, that's still my point is in parts of the county and in parts of Port Angeles, the owner could be somebody from out of state, and the regulation is they only have to be there 3 months out of the year to be eligible. So still head shaking. So that's a good thing. Good thing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Doug, you did have your hand raised. Would you like to make another comment at this point, or did? Okay. Okay. Okay.
Discussed this a little bit, some of the staff already, but just
Okay, thank you very much. We went a little rogue there, but thank you. All right.
Julian, we did
Anything?
catch that online. So if there's anything that you want us.
Okay. Doug, I asked for clarification, even though public comment was closed, and he said that the parks were all owner occupied with the exception of one that was Sunnyside, where some of the units are rented out by the landlord. But, yeah, okay. Okay. Anything else on the mobile home park moratorium? Okay, thank you very much, Kim and Sharice and Emily, for your work on this. Thank you, everybody that showed up for this. And hopefully we'll have more soon.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, now, Sharice, I know you and I had talked about this the other day. We are now going into a regular session meeting, or we're going to continue with the work session?
It's just regular session. And
Okay.
technically, you open the regular session at the beginning of the meeting and we had
Okay.
a session as part of the regular.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so now we are moving on to general business. And on general business, we have the 2025 comprehensive plan. And I believe that we have our consultants here.
Yes. Julian, I'd
And-
like to introduce Bill. It's been a long day. Would you like to come up and introduce yourself? You only know the half of it, but anyway, please come up. We have a presentation tonight. As you might know and might have met, our comprehensive plan staff is here today, and Bill Grimes is here to give you a presentation and update of where we are so far with the comprehensive plan. It's kind of the kickoff for an initiation of the next 1.5 to 2 years of work that we'll be going through. So Bill, I'm going to kick it over to you, and I'll, if you have any questions for me, I'll be off screen.
Very good.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharice.
Thank you.
So, there we go. I'll just keep it on the regular PowerPoint slide here so we can navigate back and forth if we need to. But thank you very much for inviting us to come and speak with you tonight. The timing is great. Aaron Merkar and I are here doing 2 days of interviews to help get us oriented to some of the topics and issues that are on people's minds here in Sequim. So it's great to be able to be here tonight with you. So what I'd like to be able to do is just go through. There we go. It's a little bit of a delay in the slide. So this is our team. You'll probably recognize some of these faces from our proposal. Bill Grimes, I'm a principal with SCJ Alliance. I'll be the project manager. Chris Zajas was with us the last time we were here with the Planning Commission. He's an economist with Leland, and he's fired up and working on the project now. And then also Bob Bengford with Makers. He was with us too the last time we were together. And he's going to be working with us predominantly on the code portion, looking at the code scrub, and then also of the creation of the UDC toward the tail end of this project. We also have Sharice Graham. She's not with us tonight, but she's our environmental lead, and she'll be working on the environmental impact statement and making sure that process is integrating effectively with this one. And then we do have a new face with us, and that is Aaron Merkar. Here's here in the audience. You can see he was also part of our initial proposal. So he may have an opportunity to speak with you tonight as well. Depends where our Q&A goes. So this is our project scope. We actually have 10 different tasks or phases that we're working on as part of this contract. We will be working on, and it's fairly layered, as you know. we have a comprehensive plan update that we'll be integrating with an environmental impact statement. The update is the required periodic update, the 10-year update. We also have designed an engagement program. We're in the process of finalizing the plan for it now, but it's deliberate in interweaving the different facets of this plan into a cohesive package. We're also coordinating with Transpo, who is the city's transportation consultant on the transportation management plan or master plan. And so we're going to be building their process, their engagement into ours to the extent we can, so that people who are interested in talking to us about long-range vision for Sequim, they may have land use or transportation or economic development considerations. We want to make sure that we have an open forum for that conversation. As Charisse mentioned in the earlier presentation, we do have some work scoped now for a housing action plan. The city is looking at grants from Commerce to help with that, also grants to help with the climate action plan. So we'll be revisiting the scope that we have on that to make sure that we are optimizing that opportunity to talk about both of those topics. And actually in our orientation interviews today, housing was a priority consideration. Just about everybody that we spoke with from different perspectives, but the topic came up. We also intend to look at some economic development plan. We'll scope that a little bit more definitively once we have a chance what the community vision might be. But we do know that we need to make sure we're looking at the downtown plan as an adopted policy document and make sure that the comprehensive plan as it's evolving is also informing what we might want to consider for the downtown plan. So we have those linked together. And then we are looking to pull together a brand new unified development code that will integrate into a single title your zoning, subdivision, environmental procedures, administrative procedures, and design guidance. So you have that as an efficient and internally consistent set of rules and regulations to implement your new comprehensive plan. Oh, and I should say, please feel free to interrupt me during this if you have questions. Do not hold back. Okay, so our schedule, I can see pens writing notes, so I imagine we're going to have a nice conversation here. So we've written our schedule to be able to deliver a comprehensive plan for adoption to your city council by the end of June next year. It's a rather rapid pace for this type of a project. We're also anticipating beginning work on the UDC early next year, so that we have the entirety of 2025 to work through those details. We want to make sure we time the start of that to coincide with the resolution, or I should say the increasing resolution of the policy direction of the comprehensive plan, so we can be most effective as possible with the UDC. We're working on refining our public participation plan. We'll be working with staff to work out the details on that. But it's essentially broken down into these types of phases here, where our first phase in the spring of this year is to work with the community on developing or refining a vision. There are visions and implied visions in the various policy documents that the city has adopted so far. And so what we're looking to do is to have a community vetting of those statements and see if what was adopted 10 years ago in the comprehensive plan still holds true today. And so we'll have a community conversation about that. And we're also developing our own understanding of where the city is today and the larger community is today. So we're doing demographic research and some economic research and some environmental research to get a good baseline set up. So that's work that's actually beginning already. This summer and probably moving into the fall, we intend to have a robust community conversation about what some of the opportunities and choices might be as we investigate different scenarios and compare those to the community values that were expressed in the vision, and give the community an opportunity to talk to us about some of the trade-offs and some of the priorities that will help guide consolidation into a preferred scenario for the plan to be written around. And then in the winter, we're looking to draft the plan and the EIS. I'm calling it commitment in this because it's something that we really want to make sure we get the community to buy into as part of that process. So we'll have some public events around that, both to evaluate the quality of the plan that we've produced, and then to think about some of the strategic implementation actions the community would like to see moving forward, and hopefully give the city council something of a dance card so that when they're looking budget year to budget year, they can identify their priorities and how to order what to do next. So we'll have public hearings in the spring of 2025, and we'll try to kick those off with a joint work session with the Planning Commission and the City Council so that you have an opportunity to describe to the City Council some of your experiences in this process and hopefully convey some of the message and the compelling components of the plan to the council so we have that continuity as it moves from your dais to theirs. And then we'll kick off the Unified Development Code as part of that process too. Now, this schedule really is still focused on a June 25 deadline date, but there is legislation to potentially extend that deadline to December. We haven't had yet that conversation with staff, but that might be an attractive option depending on the level of transformation that this plan begins to incorporate. We may need to expand that conversation, give it a little bit more time. But that is something that is possible. And I would almost say it's probable at this point, because I believe it's on the governor's desk for signature. So about our engagement, these are the categories of engagement that we anticipate working on, and I'll talk about some of these in more detail here in the next couple of slides. But we are working on a public participation plan, and we're working on one that expresses engagement maybe in two levels, where one is speaking about the guiding philosophy that we want to make sure that we hew to whenever we have any kind of a public engagement opportunity, and making sure that we're also identifying the audiences to whom we need to speak through this process. You know, it's not necessarily just the people who are already in the room. How are you reaching out to people who may not necessarily even be aware that this is happening? So that public participation program is going to be that statement of philosophy and methodology. It's also going to be a statement of the specific. It's going to get into the schedule and some of the event types that we're looking to work into this. So we do expect it to be a living document, because at every event, we will learn something that may inform the way we conduct the next one. So we do anticipate revising this thing as we go forward, but we want to be able to at least set, I don't want to say in stone, but I would say set rather solidly our philosophy, and that's a big part of this participation plan. We have a website that is now live, and I'll talk a bit about that here in a moment, but we will be having an active online presence as part of this process. The orientation interviews were about maybe 1/3 of the way through. We have a full slate of interviews scheduled for tomorrow, and we have some more scheduled for next week. We do anticipate having a vision workshop this spring, and we hope to be something of a fixture at community events as this process is going on. We routinely have pop-up booths that we use for farmers markets or First Fridays or other types of community festivals. And we have designed a series of exercise types to engage people in conversation and help folks understand how this policy conversation is relevant to their day-to-day living and what they really appreciate about their community. So I'm really looking forward to those events. Another thing I'm really looking forward to is our storefront studio. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. But it's something where we're here for several days. And we have an open, transparent studio. People come in, they're able to visit with us, and we run workshops at the same time. We'll have a landmark rollout event where people can have a chance to take a look at the plan's initiatives and see how the environmental impact statement and the plan come together. And then we'll go into that implementation workshop that I referenced earlier, where we'll take those plan policy initiatives and recommendations and see how they map to budgetable, trackable, assignable, prioritizable actions to help inform the plan's implementation over the next 5, 10, 20 years. And then we'll launch into our public hearings after that. So a bit about some of these engagement details. Yes, the website, squimagine.org. Tell your friends. It is in its infancy right now. We have some, project information posted on the page, but we intend to have that site evolve over time. So we'll be posting results of our workshops. We'll be posting draft materials. We'll be posting links to reference materials that people may want to investigate. It'll be also the host or splash for a community survey later on in the process. Now, I understand the city has done a community satisfaction survey recently, and some of the preliminary findings are indicating that this is a great opportunity to get engaged in this project. And so we're going to try to build off some of those early findings and reference that so that we have a sense of continuity as we work throughout this process. I'm using my hands a lot. Sorry about that. As we work through this process and integrate it into some of the other cities' initiatives that may not necessarily be embedded in the comprehensive plan conversation. Orientation interviews 23 today, tomorrow. It has been a long day. Today, tomorrow, and then several more next week. We're taking notes. We're listening to what people are saying. It's a multi-purposed engagement activity for us. It helps us learn because we are guests in your community, and it's giving us an opportunity to be introduced to the town through the perspectives of a variety of people in these one-on-one conversations. And they're really enlightening. And we're taking notes and categorizing our notes in terms of the topics people are interested in bringing up. We're probing those topics a little bit to try to resolve things that may be issues for the plan to address. And then Aaron and I are also taking notes on maps as people are talking, so we can begin to understand how maybe some areas of the community have special characteristics that we need to be aware of as we define and refine our process going forward. We also see these orientation interviews as a great opportunity to build a level of community awareness, perhaps excitement about the process. And so we see these as an extended invitation so that people can come back, stay engaged, talk to these things with their colleagues, speak of these things with their colleagues and family, and get our community awareness of the process and hopefully interest in the process elevated as part of these conversations. So there's more to come. Aaron and I, again, have a full day tomorrow booked, and we'll consolidate our findings and we'll share those with staff and with the Planning Commission so that we have an opportunity all to learn from this experience. Now, I should say that we are considering these interviews as anonymous. So we're hoping that we get some good, honest feedback on what maybe we can do better. And maybe some of the things that people may be a little bit more reticent to share if they were attributed or if it were in a group setting. So our community events, we do these a lot and we love them. We have something we call a chip drop exercise where we ask people to prioritize community issues and values given a fixed budget. You know, do you want to invest on congestion relief? Do you want to invest in housing? Do you want to invest on business prosperity? Do you want to invest in parks and recreation? You know, all these really wonderful things that are worthy of community attention and investment, but we also confront them with the reality of having a fixed budget. And so that helps us begin to understand how people might prioritize various trade-offs and questions. So that's something we do. And even though it gives us quantifiable results in terms of how many chips are dropped in whichever category, I think one of the things that's even more important than that is that it engages people in a very visceral, intuitive level, and it really informs conversations that we then have with them as they talk about the exercise they have to go through in considering how to weigh one option over another. And then our storefront studio, it probably is one of my favorite events ever. It's something that became the banner of our practice, and we've done it for the last 20 years, evolving every time we do it, and each one is different than the one that preceded it. But we try to be a project team on display. And we treat these studios as a project studio. So we are in there and we are doing work, but it's also a project gallery. They're very visual. We have community images captioned to really begin to express some of those core elements of the vision. And we engage people in one-on-one conversations, whether they want to take a look at the imagery around the studio or whether they want to participate in a planned diagrammatic exercise. We definitely accommodate them. If we can find the right venue, we can also have our community workshops in the same space, so that people who are attending the workshops have an opportunity to see the product that is populating the walls as the studio progresses. It can be very exciting. We spoke to Transpo, and we're coordinating with them on this as well, so that we will have transportation material on display and probably a transportation-focused workshop occurring in the studio as well. So some of the stuff that we've been working on over the last several weeks here is the commerce checklist and our policy framework. And Aaron and I were both taking notes earlier today in the mobile home park conversation, because that has direct relevance to what we're doing right now. The commerce checklist is a tool that is provided to every jurisdiction going through these periodic updates. And it identifies the changes in the Growth Management Act and associated laws since the last time the comprehensive plan was touched or periodically updated. And so it gives us basically a 10-year history of the changes in planning legislation that we need to observe in this update. It's a great score sheet. What it does is that it helps us set the minimum bar for what we need to do with our plan. So we've gone through this. We provided a draft to staff last week, and we'll refine it and make sure that we're committing where we need to commit to the individual components on the checklist. So it's a great tool for us to understand really what is on our radar as we look down the road. A companion to that is our policy framework, where we skeletonize your existing comprehensive plan into only its goals and policies. And so well, maybe I shouldn't say skeletonized, because it's kind of the bones and muscle of the plan. It's both. But what we try to do with this is that we try to reveal in this framework areas where policies are really working well together and areas where maybe they're not so much. And so comprehensive plans, almost by the nature of their structure, are very siloed. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to develop a framework here where we can recognize the tendency to have land use policies in the land use element, and transportation policies in the transportation element, and parks policies in the parks element, and figure out how we can maybe make the policy direction a little bit more efficient and more internally compatible. So this is something of a quick look at how we can do that. So we have built this, we've shared this with staff as well. We're going through this, and you can see we have some columns that we have not yet filled out. And some of those are structural. Is this worded as a goal or is this worded as a policy? Because there are some subtle differences between those two that are actually really important. And then we also have a column for our first blush implications, like this land use policy might not necessarily be compatible with this transportation policy, like the transportation policy that says, let's emphasize pedestrian and bicyclist transportation. Let's get active transportation as a community priority. And then maybe there's a land use policy that talks about preserving the integrity of single family neighborhoods. They are both probably worthwhile directives, but they may not necessarily work as well as they might need to be an effective, coherent package. So that's the type of first level policy analysis we do, and the framework enables us to do that. And that is also something that you'll find in your packet. Okay, so our next steps are to refine that checklist and get it to Commerce, to continue building on our policy analysis and really digging into some of these things, finalizing our public participation plan and our community snapshot, so we have a baseline where we are today. Staff has already given us a spreadsheet of code items that have been a burr in their saddle for a little while, see what we can do to take care of some of those things and ease some of the difficulty and inconsistencies there. And then we'll be designing and scheduling a vision workshop with the community so we can have a conversation about where people want to be in the year 2045. All right. So that's all I have for my presentation. And Aaron and I and Emily are here for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Yes, Larry.
I believe I read somewhere in there that we have to make sure that our plans are kind of not in alignment, but that we take into account what others are doing around us, the county. Are they part of not just the county, but maybe even also the sovereign nations that might be nearby, the federal lands? Is that all part of this process that you're going through? Are you evaluating their plans, if they have any, and if they disclose them?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, if they disclose them, we do evaluate them. We don't do them necessarily to the same level of detail, but we do try to understand where plans might be in a strategic alignment or where maybe our priorities contradict with others. We don't have a lot of latitude to change what they do, but we need to at least be aware of where we might be able to work well together or maybe not so much. Now, we do need to be compatible with the countywide planning policies that establish this overall rubric for things of regional significance. And we do need to make sure that we formally invite Native American tribes to participate in this process too. So, I mean, there are some statutory things that we absolutely have to pay attention to. And then also the RTPO, the Regional Transportation Planning Organization, we need to make sure that our transportation directives are consistent with their regional policy.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm sure you're aware of this, but Clallam County is working through issues right now, but they do have in their comprehensive plan sub-regional area plans specifically, and one of them is Sequim Dungeness. So a gander at that might be helpful.
Can I add that we are talking with the planning, the regional planning world. So Clallam County, Port Angeles, Forks, even Jefferson County and Port Townsend. We do talk monthly, and we're aligning a meeting to start talking about countywide planning policies in Clallam County. We haven't started the conversation yet, but I talk with Bruce quite often. So we will be engaging in discussions. So it is coming. We haven't had that first meeting, and we'll obviously be bringing Bill and Aaron into those discussions when we get there.
Yeah, one of the big issues that we're working on right now is the agricultural accessory uses, which are going to codify and change the nature of how small and large agricultural farms operate commercially to entice tourists to their particular farm or whatever. So there's going to be a lot of new development areas in that probably pretty soon. The first shot is going to probably come up within the next couple of months. And that's going to affect Sequim because there's a lot of lavender farms, et cetera, around this area. And the minimum acreage is going to be 1 acre for these agricultural accessory uses. So it's interesting and special.
I have a question. One of the things that's been important to this commission that we work on, but we haven't had an opportunity to, and part of the reason why is because this comprehensive plan review was imminent, is we really want to talk about short-term rentals. Is it appropriate to have a section in the comprehensive plan, or is it not appropriate?
If it's a community issue, I would say that it is something that needs to find a home in some way in the comprehensive plan. I don't know yet what that home would be, but I could see it relating to land use, housing, economic development policy, maybe even community design.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? No? Oh, I did have one other thing for you. When you were talking about community engagement, and I understand that the process isn't, right now, but one thing that might be good for community engagement is if you reached out to the Chamber of Commerce and asked to speak at one of their monthly luncheons. A lot of times they have a speaker, like when Matt came to Sequim, he came and talked to everybody and, let everybody know kind of who he was and where he was from. And that there's usually pretty large engagement with the attendees. Some of them are just community members, some of them are business owners, but that might be a good way. And I know the chamber would appreciate hosting you.
That's a great idea. Are there other civic organizations who would be similarly positioned?
The EDC definitely, yeah, they definitely would be a really good resource. The North Peninsula Building Association, it's NPBA.
Mm-hmm. How about Kiwanis or Rotary?
Yeah, Rotary for sure. Yeah, Coffee with Colleen. That'd be a good one. There's also the radio station here in Sequim. They also love it when people want to come talk. The Irrigation Festival has like a 2-day family event the first weekend, and they have like a big arts and crafts show, and they have community booths. So you would I know that there's a lot of emphasis on the lavender and the lavender festival, but the Irrigation Festival is the longest continuing community festival in the state of Washington. And there's a lot of local people that attend that. It's probably, with the lavender festival, you have, I'm just throwing this out top of my head, but probably 75% of the people that attend are out of towners. Whereas with the Irrigation Festival, 75% that attend are local. So that would be a good opportunity.
I want to circle back on because that's really a great comment and observation. We do have a lot of people who visit, and will they be participating? Because if this is anonymous, how will we know if they're a stakeholder or if they're just passing through? Is that something I'm sure you've addressed?
Right. Yeah. So the orientation interviews we're trying to anonymize. The various engagement activities we actually will try to personalize to the extent we can, particularly some of our workshop activities where people are working in small groups, where we really want people to have those conversations and those debates and bring themselves to it and own their recommendations. So I think that's something that happens there. The other part of your question, is maybe differentiating the folks who are within city limits and those who aren't, or maybe those who are within the UGA and aren't, or maybe those who are in Clallam County and aren't. And I think that's something that's going to come out of those conversations. And I think our comprehensive plan, while it is going to be adopted by the council and will govern what happens in the city limits and in the UGA, it will still need to respond to some of those factors that people who are visiting this community are bringing to them. So it's something that And some of our survey instruments and like the one that we have online, we will have a question for people to self-identify if they're a Sequim resident, or if they are in, perhaps maybe we even broaden it and say, are you in the Sequim school district boundary? And then, have a category for those who aren't. So we have some way of seeing into that a little bit.
Thank you. And, just on that point, we do have the Sequim city limits, but there are a lot of people that, like for instance, myself, I live in the county. I am within the Sequim school district. Technically my address is Port Angeles, but, I identify as a Sequimite. I mean, I go to Port Angeles probably once a month, and I'm here at least 2 times a day. So, there's a lot of people that aren't necessarily in the Sequim city limits, but are very engaged in this community as far as work and recreation and dining and employment. Yeah, everything. So just to consider that. Anything else?
Yeah, was one
Okay,
last
go ahead,
comment. I
Jeff.
really hate how you anticipate in advance my questions without even knowing what they are. It's very irritating. I have a whole list and they're already answered here on the. Thank you, Bill. Yeah. And there are several of us, like I'm a Sequim school district as well with a Port Angeles address.
Mhm.
So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
But I think I speak for I wanted to check with Eileen and see if she had anything she'd like to add.
No, I'm just glad it's moving forward.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I'll be better to enjoy it.
Okay. And I think I speak for the commission when I say we're really excited about this process. So thank you very much.
Yep.
As are we. Thank you. Yes. No, I did not say that.
So they'll have pretty much the same presentation. Catch them up as well, so everybody's on the same page with the passing timeline process.
Okay, thank you.
We have a condensed recorded version with presenter in a little bubble on the screen.
Okay.
Just the way council likes it.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Okay.
Good work.
Yeah, definitely. You guys are going to fall in love with this town. You're going to want to move here.
No.
Okay. So moving on, we have nothing under new business. So at this point, we're moving on to director's report with Sharice.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick update about the interim controls for the splitter and let you know that our consultant transport group has been doing some research in looking at connectivity as it relates to the current comprehensive plan and the transportation master plan. As of early this week, they've gotten back with some suggestions, and I'll be meeting with them most likely sometime next week to determine if there is some information we can start working on the code update as it relates to connectivity. We do have the interim controls in place through the end of April. And so if we are ready to come back to the Planning Commission and then move that forward, we might ask for a recommendation for approval of a code ordinance update. But if we aren't ready at that time, we'll be asking for an extension of the interim controls and hope to have that done in the next couple of months' time at the most. But we still do need to go out to the Department of Commerce and do a CEPA on it. So it might be probably May if we're being realistic about when it would be adopted. But we have been meaning to put that on the regular general business update, and we are still working and behind the scenes. So I thought you deserved a little bit of an update of where that is tonight. Any questions on that? Okay.
Nope, doesn't look like it.
Thank you. You guys are very small on my screen, so I can't really. And then the other two items, I just put those on there. I had a discussion with one of the planning commissioners, and I don't remember who it was now, but just as a courtesy, when an item goes through that you've recommended approval of, then we'll try to put some information on the agenda to show you where that landed. And so the two items listed there have been approved by council and are moving forward. So that's that. And as I think Matt and Bill had mentioned, we'll be giving an update about the comprehensive plan at the 3/11 city council meeting coming up next week. A lot of other irons in the fire going right now, and we hope to give you more information in the future. But for now, that concludes my director's report.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have anything for the good of the order? No? Okay. That's it, huh? Oh, yes, Matt.
Yeah, so you have 3 minutes.
You have 3 minutes. Did you sign the sheet?
I'm happy to sign that. So just so that you're on the same page, I love that you guys are in sync with what council's doing and everything. And this is new for Sharice. We just kind of put this on. So if you said it already, I missed it. If you didn't, I understand why you wouldn't, because we just did this. So we did this survey with the residents recently, got the results back just yesterday. We got a PowerPoint. He put a voiceover like the council likes, and that will be in the packet tomorrow or for this coming Monday. And he'll be, the consultant group will be presenting, so you can watch that and get the same information on what the residents said about the community that you're commissioning over. And so I think it was already brought up. There was really great results. The community loves what you guys are building here and what you've done. And, but it looked like the real opportunity for growth or for improvement is in the growth management aspect. So I don't want to get into it any more than that. It's just an announcement to look at the packet that's online. You can watch the same PowerPoint or video that the council's seen. You can sign in and the consultant will be here to summarize the PowerPoint and to answer any of the council's questions. But this needs to come to you all too, because this is really your work and their work. So it just happened. So sorry, Sharice, I know she just disappeared and this just kind of dropped into our lap, in the last 24 hours or something. So yes.
Is that the packet for the city council 311?
Yes.
Where that we can find that
Yes.
PowerPoint?
Yes.
Is all the results tabulated for each question?
So it's a summary of the survey. It's a 20-minute PowerPoint with a very articulate voiceover from the consultant. He's one of the principals with this. They're the largest. I think they started their company in the 70s. They do more municipal surveys in the country than anybody. We got great. We structured the survey to ask how do you feel we're doing, and also how important is it to you, so we can find out how we're doing and does it matter, is it important to them or not. We also got comps, national comparisons as well as regional comparisons, our results to those two, and we really outscored everybody. So you can be and should be proud of the city and of what you're doing. But anyway, all that will be in this summary, or the PowerPoint and it's not in the bucket yet if you're looking, because we don't post the bucket until Thursday afternoon. So that's when it goes public. So anyway, I just wanted you to kind of keep in step with that, because it really lends to the consultants and to your work on what's happening in the next year and what Sharice is leading us through. So yeah, just wanted you to kind of be aware of that. Sharice will catch you up later with a narrative that's coming and with the interactive software that we got, that we purchased with the survey, that allows you all, any of us, to slice and dice that data how you want by all kinds of variables. Working, age, neighborhoods,
county, city, kids, all those kinds of variables are in there, and we can slice and dice and find out, specifically how neighborhoods feel about things. So anyway, I've talked too much, but that's all coming. Sharice will catch you up on that going forward. So very
Okay.
exciting.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that info. I did. I took it. So, okay. Well, thanks. I think now we're just waiting for motion to adjourn.
I move the meeting be adjourned.
Okay. Can I get a second?
No, sir.
Nobody wants a second?
I like it here.
I'll second it. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, meeting adjourned at 7:16. Thank you.
Hmm.
Was I